Welcome back to the channel. This will be the transfer tips for Game Week 8, the updated version as we're approaching the Game Week 8 deadline. Be sure to smash the like button and subscribe if you enjoy my content, and check all the other links in the description below. Let me know down in the comment section below if you want to see a predicted lineups podcast before the Game Week 8 deadline as well. There will be an updated wildcard team in the upcoming days, and the same goes for my team selection as well as the deadline stream over the weekend, and use your fantasy content ahead of match day 3 with the best limitless and wildcard teams, team selection, and much more. Without further ado, let's jump straight into it. The first purchase I'm going to recommend today is Raul Jimenez, who costs 5.6 million, and his ownership still remains very low at 5.5% with 3 goals and 1 assist for the campaign so far. 14 shots inside the box is relatively impressive, especially for a player at this price, and he's got 32 FPL points. He's in sensational form at the moment, delivering in every single game recently over the last month, and hopefully this second international break doesn't really put a damper on his momentum, because the fixtures coming up are very promising for Fulham, especially the attacking players. You've got Everton, Brentford and Crystal Palace up next, and even Aston Villa aren't the greatest defensively, and you could see Fulham creating chances for Jimenez and for him to score a few goals over the next month or so. But you've always got that kind of potential issue of Manice, who came off the bench against Manchester City and scored. Some people are a bit fearful that Raul Jimenez will be benched. I don't share those concerns whatsoever, at least for the time being, and I'd buy Raul Jimenez if we're in the market for a budget forward. Up next is James Maddison, who has good fixtures until Game Week 12 when Spurs have that visit to the Etihad, but they've got a good record against Man City, generally speaking, so they could get something at that stadium. And beyond Game Week 12, you've got some good opponents in the long term for Spurs, and that's why a Spurs attacker would be a recommendation from me. Although Solanke is my preference and Brennan Johnson is the informed midfielder, Maddison has the best underlying numbers with an XGI figure of 4.9, which is right up there amongst the entire division. That is the expected goal involvements with XG and expected assists combined. 2 goals and 3 assists for the season is a decent return. His ownership is still very low, so if you're looking for a differential at this price range, I do like Maddison, but you do have a lot of options as well, like Jarrod Bowen, Diaz, Jota, and of course Brian Mbeumo, who is the best of the lot. If you don't have Mbeumo, I'd highly recommend him, even over James Maddison, who has 39 FPL points for the season, and all the underlying stats are very impressive. 15 shots overall, with 12 of them being inside the box, 13 chances created, 3 of them being big ones, and 4 big chances for himself. So I do like Maddison overall. You do need him to score, and then you'll get 2 or 3 bonus points very easily, but will he score at that consistent rate you're looking for? Perhaps not, but given these fixtures and how he's playing with the underlying stats, I think Maddison is worth a punt. The final buy in today's podcast is Aina, and this would also apply to Milenkovic. There isn't much separating them. I think Aina is better for bonus points, whilst Milenkovic will give you more goals and assists combined for the entire season, given his aerial presence in these situations. But I think Aina is a very good pick with 6% ownership, a 4.5 million price tag. No goals or assists so far, but 5 bonus points is very decent, and 24 FPL points. Nottingham Forest also have good fixtures, and they're 8th in the Premier League table for expected goals conceded, with a figure of around 8 themselves. So I do like Nottingham Forest defenders, or Sells in goal if he's fit, and I believe he will be for Game Week 8, but he was withdrawn from the Belgian squad, so keep an eye out for that situation. Aina only has 3 shots so far this season, with 1 of them being inside the box, and also 2 big chances created, which is decent, and 4 key passes, but nothing spectacular. He's not going to get you that many attacking returns. He might give you a few assists from now until Game Week 38, but not too many to really be a standout and an amazing defender with so much attacking potential. But he will give you clean sheets, a few bonus points, and at this price point, I don't think you can really complain whatsoever. We're now onto the hold section, and Kai Havertz is featuring once again in these podcasts as a hold. He has gone up to 8.3 million since the last time I talked about him in one of these videos, and his ownership is over 20% with 4 goals and 1 assist this season. No returns in away matches. All of them have come at the Emirates, and he's been fantastic in that stadium with goals in 7 consecutive games across all competitions, and I think he could make that 8 in a row, even against Liverpool at home, but it will be a tough ask against the best defence in the league up until now. 10 big chances for Kai Havertz so far this season and 40 FPL points. He's not the most reliable finisher, and that's something that never really will change, but he's been a great signing for Arsenal despite costing 65 million, and he offers so much to them in terms of link-up play, the movements he makes, and also the aerial and ground duels he wins so often. I think he gives a lot of different dimensions and aspects to the Arsenal attack, so I think playing down the middle, he's going to get a lot of attack and returns, and even as a midfielder, he can pop up from time to time, getting those goals and assists, but not to the same level, of course. Now, we have no update about Kai Havertz's injury, but I still think he'll be available for Game Week 8, and a lot of Arsenal players have been yellow flagged and also withdrawn from their national teams. I think Arteta has wisened up a little bit after missing Odegaard for the last month or so, and he's still going to be out for a few more weeks at least. But we have an update on Bukayo Saka at least, and Lee Carsley, the England manager, did say the following: Bukayo would have been close to playing versus Finland, but it would have been unfair to take a risk with him. He's a positive person, and I expect him to be fine. But with Kai Havertz, there is no such update. We might get one from Arteta in a couple of days' time, but I wouldn't bank on it. He isn't reliable when it comes to injuries, and if he says something, it might turn out to be the opposite by the deadline. So my advice is to keep Kai Havertz unless he's ruled out by a reliable source. Similar to Kai Havertz, Smith Rowe's produced every single return in home matches so far this season with 2 goals and 1 assist. He was benched at the Etihad in that 3-2 defeat against Man City, but I think Smith Rowe will come back into the side and Fulham will revert to a 4-2-3-1 rather than that more defensive formation that they employed against Man City. We could see that happen in the big away games against Liverpool and Arsenal later this season, but I think in the other games like Aston Villa, Everton, Brentford and Crystal Palace coming up next, I think Smith Rowe will start every single one of them, but he won't play the full 90. His minutes do get managed. He'll probably play between 60 to 80 minutes on each occasion. He costs 5.7 million still, and his ownership is still very high. I owned him at the beginning of this season, but I still think he's well worth it, and I wouldn't be looking to sell him because of 1 benching. 5 bonus points is also very impressive for a player at this price tag. 34 FPL points, but the underlying stats aren't particularly great, I will admit. The XG is 1.53, the expected assist 0.78, 2 big chances, only 1 big chance created, and 6 key passes. He's got the same number of shots as Pedro Porro with 12, but he is a budget midfielder after all. He would pretty much act as your 4th or 5th midfielder and rotating with your 3 forwards, so I still think Smith Rowe is worth holding on to, especially for those home games. Another hold this week would be Pedro Porro. He's got good fixtures coming up. Spurs might not be the strongest defensively. They might get a few clean sheets from time to time, but sometimes they're going to concede 2 or 3 goals out of nowhere, like they did against Brighton just before the international break started. Porro still costs 5.5 million, and his ownership is still quite high at 29.1%. Only 1 goal this season, which came in Game Week 1 against Leicester, with 12 shots overall and 26 FPL points. I think Spurs could keep 1 or 2 clean sheets over the next 4 game weeks, but it's not something you can really bank on as their defensive stats are never going to be up there in the Premier League. But Porro has that attacking potential. He's on set pieces, and that's the biggest aspect of owning this player. Only 1 big chance created though, which is quite low for his standards. 12 shots is decent of course, but only 2 of them have been inside the box. He's taking a lot of kind of wild efforts from outside the area. So I think Porro is still worth holding on to, but I do recognise that Gavardio, Arsenal defenders and Trent Alexander-Arnold would be better options in terms of premium defenders. There are several reasons why you might consider selling Trent Alexander-Arnold, and I do understand every single one of them. Alisson will miss the next month or so due to injury, and he'll probably return after the next international break in November. So Keller will come in, he's a good goalkeeper, but he's not quite Alisson. You've also got the fixtures swinging for Liverpool against them with Chelsea at home and Arsenal away in the next 2 game weeks. That's going to be very tough, not to mention Aston Villa at home in Game Week 11, and you've got Man City looming in the horizon. So Trent Alexander-Arnold isn't exactly essential over the next 4 game weeks, and you might want to sell him now, buy the likes of Palmer and Saka in the midfield with Erling Haaland up top, and then buy Trent when Liverpool's fixtures turn for the better once again. But I still think it's worth holding on to him if possible. You're not going to find a better defender in the game, although he is the most expensive at 7.1 million. His ownership is still very high at over 30%. Only 1 assist this campaign, which is very surprising, but I think the returns are coming, and they might even happen in the tough games like Arsenal away. He did get an assist there at the FA Cup last season back in January. 16 key passes is incredible for a right back with 41 FPL points, and you can read any stat really and it's going to be impressive. 2 shots on target isn't great, but 8 shots overall, also 5 big chance created and an expected assist figure of 2.81. You'd probably want to see more shot volume from Trent Alexander-Arnold and the XG to be higher. Only 1 shot is inside the box, but all the creativity stats are incredible, and I think Trent will get more assists in the next month or so, and that's why a lot of people will start to buy him in at some stage, especially after Arsenal away. But I just think for those of you with Trent, you might be considering Konate to cover that Liverpool defence, who have been the best so far this season, and you save 2 million in the process. So if that allows you to buy Palmer or Saka in the midfield, then fair enough, that could really work. But in many cases, it's worth holding on to Trent Alexander-Arnold and spending the extra millions on this player. Harry Winks was benched in Game Week 7 in Leicester City's 1-0 victory over Bournemouth, and he might come back into the side against Southampton away, but that isn't a guarantee. And at 4.5 million, you do have some alternatives for just a little bit more, like Dibbling at 4.6 million. You've also got plenty of options at around 5 to 6 million, like Smith-Rowe, Semenyo, Rodgers, and many more I've discussed on this channel, like McNeil. It's worth going to these players instead because you might need them to come off the bench for those that are suspended, who might miss out randomly or get injured. So Harry Winks is a sell. His ownership is still very high at 13.6%, with no goals, no assists, 0 shots on target, only 1 shot in the entire campaign, and 6 key passes, which is decent, but that's the only good stat Harry Winks has to offer. 11 FPL points. He's not really going to get you many attacking returns or FPL points this season. He is going to be second or third on your bench more often than not anyway, but if possible, I'd upgrade him to one of those midfielders I discussed earlier to really bolster your 50-man squad in the best way possible. In last week's video, I highlighted Mazraoui as a whole to wait for more information about his injury, and if he was fit, I would keep him in the long term with United's fixtures, his price point, the bonus points potential, and the odd assist he could offer. But unfortunately, Mazraoui is injured for the next 2 months, so he is a sell. It's a very simple one. You might not have been aware of that, but now you are. And unfortunately, for those that have him already with 15.4% ownership, you should be looking elsewhere for the next 2 months. Once he comes back, he could definitely enter our thinking again for FPL, but he does pick up quite a few injuries over the last couple of years, and that's always been a slight concern of mine. He's got 2 bonus points and 1 assist so far this season, 26 FPL points. The upcoming fixtures are great. If you still want to cover United defensively, you've got Onana in goal, who will get you plenty of saves and bonus points. You've also got Diogo Dalot, who will probably get you the most FPL points of any United defender. De Ligt has attacking potential from set pieces, and you've also got a few others to come right into the fray. Lisandro Martinez at 4.5 million might offer the best value to get those clean sheets, but ultimately, I'd go for either Onana or Dalot. Bruno Fernandes has endured a terrible start to this season. It has been a nightmare for him, with red cards in back-to-back games across all competitions. Now, the red card against Tottenham was unfair, and it was rescinded in the end, so he did play against Aston Villa in that 0-0 draw, but only 1 assist in the Premier League with no goals. The XGI is 3.19, so he's been massively underperforming, and with United's fixture run coming up, and for those that still own him, you could argue Bruno Fernandes is a hold, and I wouldn't really mind that for maybe 1 or 2 more game weeks, give him another chance. But you've got so many other midfielders with great fixtures like Mbumo. Jarrod Bowen might not have the best fixtures, but I'd rather own him than Bruno Fernandes at this moment in time. You've got one of Diaz or Jota, who are also offering much more consistency. And for a little bit more, you can go to the likes of Phil Foden. Cole Palmer is also a different price tag, to be fair, at over 2 million more. Same with Saka, but I think it's worth going for all of these players instead. And even the budget midfielders I discussed earlier, Brennan Johnson with the form he's in, Bruno Fernandes just isn't cutting it. So it might seem a bit strange for those that have kept him up until this point when United's fixtures are now turning for the better. Now, in those scenarios, you could give him 1 or 2 more weeks to deliver, and if he doesn't, you sell him. But I think for those that are looking to invest in Man United players, I would not be going anywhere near Bruno Fernandes, and my favourites would be Onana and Dalot. Once again, if I had to pick one attacker, Fernandes would still be right up there for me, but I'd be more tempted by Garnacho. He seems to have the more explosive potential at the moment, whether he comes off the bench and makes an impact, or by starting games. If he can build that consistency, I think he'll be the best Man United attacker from now until the end of the season. He's also cheaper, so if it doesn't go right, it won't cost you too much in terms of value, but Bruno Fernandes for me is a skip. The 11th and final player covered today is Savio, who got an assist in Brazil's 2-1 victory over Chile. And Savio has a bit of something about him. His dribbling, also the control he has, is very reminiscent of Riyad Mahrez. He's got 3 assists for Manchester City in the Premier League this season, with 2 big chance created and 19 FPL points, but no goals so far. Very low ownership and great fixtures coming up, so I can see the temptation to buy these Man City midfielders like Gundogan and Savio, but I'd personally look elsewhere. Even Phil Foden, who's been terrible this season, I'd rather go in that direction for now. I think he'll start 3 of the next 4 Premier League games, for example. But with Man City having the Champions League matches as well, it's always going to be tough to predict Man City's starting 11 week in, week out. Savio will get some starts as well in the process, but you can't really bank on it. And I think at this price and below, you've got all those budget midfielders I mentioned earlier and Brennan Johnson, who offer much more consistency in terms of starts and attack and returns. Savio's definitely one to watch though in the future. I really like the look of him, but for now, Savio is a skip. There we have it, another 11 players to buy, hold, sell and skip ahead of Game Week 8, and you can check out my original podcast which features 11 players. The only one to really kind of ignore there is Mazraoui because I've updated the status on him from a hold to a sell, but the other 10 players would still be different to what I've covered today, and they will offer you the ultimate coverage for Game Week 8, so you know exactly what to do with your transfers and the players to buy, hold, sell and skip. Thank you very much for watching this video and listening to this podcast. If you enjoyed it or found it useful, then be sure to smash the like button and subscribe for new. Our aim is to get this to over 200 likes and to keep on pushing towards 35 subscribers and beyond. Follow me on Twitter and Instagram, DylanRCM, and check all the other links in the description below for my Patreon and the championships for early access to my videos, amongst many other perks, the Discord server, FPL League, Draft Hound, as well as Spotify. Leave a 5-star review on my podcast. It would go a long way to support my channel. I wish you all the best of luck for Game Week 8 and the rest of the season, and I'll see you next time.